Welcome back to another week of Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. Ryan Drury here. Sadly, Clarkey cannot join us. He's tied up with some stuff, and he's left me hanging here. Not on purpose, but listen, I don't think that Clarkey could necessarily handle the pressure of what this show may become, much like what his team is doing right now. And when the Maple Leafs are in trouble in the playoffs, or sadly, when they are eliminated from the playoffs, there's someone that we like to turn to. And I hope genuinely that next week or the week after, we're actually going to be off next week, we can have this guy back on and talk about a series win. Back here to break some things down from a unfortunate Game 5 loss is our friend, longtime junior coach, Sutherland Cup champion. It is Jason Brooks. Brooksy, I'd ask how you're doing, but I feel like you're maybe in a bit of a somber mood right now. How are you feeling? I mean, the Leafs could still win. They got 2 bullets left.
Well, first off, thank you for having me on the show again. I always enjoy being on. Secondly, I don't necessarily appreciate the fact we're always coming on to talk about the Leafs and how bad they're playing.
I'm sorry.
But that is okay, Ryan. You're right. They have 2 bullets in the chamber to, ultimately win this series. I think disappointment and nervousness amongst Leaf fans today would be because of what they witnessed last night and the lack of urgency. The lack of urgency and desperation to close it out. That killer instinct that we talk about teams needing in playoff hockey to ultimately, get the job done. And especially out of your top guys, that I think the pressure, or I shouldn't say the pressure, I'm sure there is pressure for them, but the bullseye directly goes on them. And what we are seeing, I would say, today is that urgency, desperation, killer instinct of those big guys just was not there, and it cost them.
It really did, and it sucks that we have to record this. By the way, people are probably wondering, how come you guys didn't wait to record this until after Game 6? Well, our schedules don't allow that, okay? As we record this on Wednesday, April 30th, the Hanover Barons are preparing to head to Napanee for a dramatic Game 7 in the Schmalz Cup Finals. I gotta go. I will be there. So hopefully when this show airs on Friday on Whiteman, the Hanover Barons will be heading to the Schmalz Cup Final against the waiting Essex 73. So that's why we're doing the show before Game 6 on Thursday. I would love it if we could have recorded then, but we can't. So we got to talk about where we sit now. And where we sit now is the Maple Leafs going up 3-0 and Ottawa punching back. Now, Brooksy, you talked about, and we always seem to talk about, the performance of the top guys. And I know that there are a large segment of Leaf fans that are tired of hearing about that. There are a large segment of Leaf fans that love to continue that conversation. I think that it still remains valid when you talk about that core 4 thing, because the window dressing around the roster has changed dramatically again. Like, everybody loved their off-season moves. And just about every new guy that they brought into the fold throughout the regular season, and really for the bulk of this playoff so far, have been very effective additions. Chris Tanev would be at the top of that list for me, followed very closely by Anthony Stolarz. Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been very effective in this series. You look at Scott Lawton has been good defensively. You look at the window dressing around the roster, and everybody seems happy with that. And so I think for the people that like to hammer on these star players, it's easy to fall back into that void of noise, if you will. Now, Mitch Marner's got 7 points, and we can talk about him a bit, sure. Austin Matthews is the guy right now that I'm looking at and going, where's the lion? Because as we record this now, he has 2 goals in his last 15 playoff games, Brooksy. Mm-hmm. I keep getting told that this guy's going to break my boy Ovi's record, that he's the best goal scorer in the world. And I'm here to tell everybody right now that he's not. Leon Draisaitl is. And I know people are going to go, oh, well, what about the 69 goals? Leon Draisaitl has a 60-goal season too, and he always scores in the playoffs. The combination of what Draisaitl does in the regular season and the playoffs dwarfs what Matthews does when you combine the two. Leon Draisaitl is currently the best goal scorer on planet Earth. This guy's got to do something, Brooksy. And I get it. Yes, his analytics and his defensive numbers look fun. But I've been told that this guy's not Guy Carbonneau. Guy Carbonneau had great defensive numbers. He's supposed to be one of the best offensive players in the world. And when the chips are down, this guy is invisible again. How would you assess his game so far?
Well, I can't argue with anything you've said. I don't disagree. And I think the thing is when you bring up a Draisaitl or you think of a McDavid, and I mean, Matthews being a first overall pick, and again, I know he's not Connor McDavid, but we see what McDavid does in Edmonton and racks up the points in the playoffs and puts a team on, like puts the Oilers on his back at times to get them through. Draisaitl has done that, like you said, like consistently over the last number of years for the Oilers in the playoffs. He's just a warrior, produces. I think that is where I go along your lines of thinking. Like, we expect Austin Matthews as Leaf fans to dominate, to lead, to dominate like these two guys in Edmonton do. And is he capable of that? Yeah, defensively, you're right. There's been a lot of positives defensively out of him, and I think that's great, but you need more offense. You need more game-breaking stuff out of him, and for the team to move on and to, have success in the playoffs, whether it's just win this round or to move through to ever get to a Stanley Cup opportunity, he's got to be the guy driving the bus. And right now he is not doing that.
That's the whole thing. And for the people, and, I wish Clarkey could be here because, and look, I know he loves Matthews, and he's a guy that there are some Leaf fans that think he's infallible, and he can't be when he's the highest paid player in the league for right now. And you see him have 260 goal seasons under his belt, including a 69. He almost did 70. And then when the playoffs roll around, this happens. And that's my point, is that you need to win the playoff games to win a cup. The regular season doesn't get you the cup. You don't win 16 regular season games and get it. You have to do it in the playoffs. And when you see a guy put up these eye-popping numbers, which he deserves his plaudits for, and then you see such a stark drop-off in the playoffs, and in particular, elimination games, it begs the ability, if you will, to levy some heavy criticism at the feet of this guy. And he's the captain now. Mm-hmm. John Tavares, I think, has had a really good series. He's been effective. He's an older guy, and he's still got a lot of game left. He's won big faceoffs. Like, they're up 3-0, and the Leafs were out there with swagger. And even when they went to overtime in game 2 and 3, I was impressed and happy to see the confidence that was on that bench. Like, it didn't affect them at all. And then they go up 3-0. You're thinking, man, oh man, like, these guys are cruising. Last week on the show, producer Adam will remember, Steve Sabrin's on here with me, and we were like, there's no way Ottawa comes back in this series. And maybe when this airs, the Leafs will have won game 6, and that would be awesome. But even if they win now, Brooksy, the way the last couple games have gone, does it instill any disbelief in you when they're going to have to go up against likely a Florida, who are up 3-1 as we record this?
I would have said after game 4, I still had plenty of confidence, that they could have competed. I mean, they were winning tight games against Ottawa, and again, shut them down. In game 4 might have been their best game they had played as a team. I mean, they were goalpost away. Matthews hits the post on the power play. Pucks, inch or two to the left, and that's in, as opposed to hitting the post and kicking out, right? But it's last night's game, Ryan, for me, watching it, that brings back all those negative memories of the past and what presents itself. I agree with you. Their confidence in those close games this year have been excellent. Like they've showed poise, they've showed confidence, they've stuck to the game plan, they haven't deviated. But last night was just lacking. And I'm going to throw the coach's hat at you a little bit here and say, it's one game, right? Like you played really, really well up until that game last night. It's just one game. Whether you win that game, like their first game 6-2, or you lose 4-0, it's as a coach, you're saying it's over and you're focusing on tomorrow type thing. The question is, can they, pull their crap together and refocus and get back to the game they can play? We know they can play and find a way to get it done. That still doesn't answer your second part. Can they beat Florida? And the way Florida's playing, I'm not sure you can beat them. I mean, I'm not sure that Leaf team is built to beat them. They'd have to have some things go their way for it to happen. But, Florida is a juggernaut. I mean, they're built to win, especially in the playoffs.
So my question, I guess, in follow-up to that would be, why can't they win? Why can't they beat Florida? Is it as simple as saying it's because of the lack of confidence you have in the big star players to come through in big moments, as opposed to what Florida star players have shown they do? Or is there something else going on? Is it an issue with the roster? Like, quite simply, do you like the rest of the roster the way it is, and the core of that disbelief for you is the big guys and what they constantly let you down with? Is that the core of why you feel like they can't beat Florida, or is it something else?
No, I would say it's the core right now. The core has to prove that they can get it done. I mean, again, you're comparing apples to apples and say, why is Florida so good? Well, they're led by two engines, in my mind. Kachuk and Bennett are engines. And then they've got this dominant 6'4" Finn down the middle who shuts down guys like Matthews in his sleep. Right? Like Barkov is just a beast down the middle and he just does his role. And then their third line center's Lundell, who, again, is a mirror image of Barkov, just not his profile, right? Like he's just a 200-foot player who does his job. You throw a rat like Marchand in there who's just another weapon for them to play with, right? And then you look at their back end and you say, yeah, the Leafs back end's pretty good. But Florida's is that much better with the size and the mutants back there that can move the puck and be physical. And, if you get through that, you still got a guy like, goalie. Give me the goalie.
Bobrovsky.
Yeah, that guy. I didn't want to screw up his name. But
Pretty good.
But that's just it, right? Like, they're so built to win from Bobrovsky out through the D and up to the forwards. I mean, yeah, it'll be a lot of those profile guys in Toronto, those big four have got to be outstanding. And until they're outstanding, I don't foresee it happening.
Yeah, they got to find a way. And I mean, it's the most broken record in the NHL. It maybe in sports right now. It is. It's these four guys and it's because they make all that money. They make all that money and they have these standout performances during the regular season. Marner finally hit 100 points and, he had a great regular season, like really, really good. And he's been good in these playoffs in terms of generating points and being creative and elevating the things that he's good at to an effective level, bar the performance by all of them in Game 5. They didn't lose Game 5 because of Mitch Marner. But that is the broken record, and it's the record's on repeat for a reason. Like, look, I'd love to come on here and talk about the great performance in Game 6, maybe even a 7, where Matthews rips home 2 and Marner's got 4 points and the power play cooks in a Game 6 or 7. Their Game 6 and 7 numbers, I don't have to repeat them to you. Like, look them up. They're really bad. They're both minuses, Marner and Matthews. Nylander, I believe, in career Game 6 and 7 is actually a +2. He actually is the one that usually shows up. And, for people that think that my Draisaitl Matthews comment is crazy, Leon Draisaitl's 7 years in the playoffs He's played 79 games, which is 19 more than Matthews, I believe. Matthews has played 60 career playoff games, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 60 across 9 years. Draisaitl's had 7 playoff years. In those playoff years, Leon Draisaitl in 79 games has 44 goals, 74 assists, and 118 points in 79 games. Matthews, across 2 more years, obviously the Leafs don't make the second round a lot, in his career games, 60 games played, 24 goals, a full 20 less than Draisaitl, who's played 19 more games than him, 30 assists, 54 points. He's not even a point per game playoff player, Auston Matthews. And again, people harp on this because he's Auston Matthews and he's supposed to be a number one center. I love the way he plays defensively. That's great. But he's the highest paid player in the league, and it's because he rips home 60 in the regular season. But he does this in the playoffs. Like, when I look at this on my Brooksy, I'm stunned looking at these numbers. Like, to have a guy that's making that much money and what I'm told by Leaf fans, and I believe it too, is a guy that's the heartbeat of this team, to not have him be a point per game player in the playoffs is stunning stuff. What is it? Like, you're watching him this year. We watch him every year. Is there a reason you feel as to why he only has 2 goals in his last 15 playoff games? Like, is there something about the way he's playing or his line plays in the playoffs that takes away from his ability to score?
It's a good question.
Like, what are guys doing to him, like a Barkov, guys like that are so effective in shutting him down? How are they doing it?
Well, I think, like, when you look at a Barkov, and I mean, I would even say Ottawa, just look at Ottawa, what they've done. I think they swarm defensively a lot more on him and take him away. And they're saying if somebody else can beat you, they're going to try to let somebody else beat them and not let him be the guy to beat them. And I think that's the key across the playoffs. For Toronto, moving like from the past, is with Matthews, they're going to take him out of it, right? Eliminate him as much as you can and say, okay, Mitch, you do your scoring, or Matthew Nyes, you do the scoring. And to Nyes' credit, I think he's played exceptional for them. I really do. I think Matthew Nyes has been maybe their best player.
Yep.
But that is a big thing. Is and you can say Matthews hasn't done it and whatever. This is where you do need somebody else to step up, or need a couple guys to step up and say, you know what, let's pick them up. They are playing him maybe harder than normal. In the regular season, as you know, Ryan, like, there's a reason why these guys like Ovi and Matthews score in the regular season as much as they do. It's just not as tight checking as what it is in the playoffs, right? I think defensively, they get the matchups they want. I think that Shane Pinto has done a heck of a job when he's been out there against that line. His speed and his ability to, get his stick on Matthews and in lanes, defenseman blocking shots, but that's still on Matthews. He's got to fight through that and find a way. I'm not giving him the green light to say it's not his fault. I'm just saying, I think as teams go, as a coach, I would be preparing and saying, Auston Matthews is the most dangerous forward on their team. When he's on the ice, you got to know he's on the ice, and you got to eliminate him. Force Marner to shoot. Does Marner like to shoot?
No, not generally.
Right, and that's the thing. He's looking to make that pass. He's looking to make that extra play. I think that's part of it, is them coming out of their comfort and almost switching. I think Matthews has to become the disher because they're going to check him so tightly and find somebody else open. And I think he's done that at times, but they just have to finish. They got to finish. And part of it, too, is the power play. I mean, when you look at Draisaitl's numbers, I'm going to guess a lot of those points come on the power play in the playoffs. Right, and he's a benefactor of McDavid and what he can do, because he opens up so much and drive it. Right, But even look at a guy like McKinnon. Why is McKinnon? McKinnon's been one of the top scorers, if not the top scorer, in the last number of years. And what's he got this playoff? 5 already? Like, I mean, big guys can do it. Matthews has just got to be willing to pay that price, willing to be in front of that net, willing to get dirty at times, get that shot off, not hit a post, right? Like, I mean, the boys hit more posts in the playoffs, when they need goals, it's hitting the post and not going in for him. He might have 4 goals already or 5 goals if he's not hitting the post. So hopefully in game 6 for them, Ryan, that he finds the back of the net, like you say, he has his moment where he gets a couple and they win and the monkey kind of comes off his back until the next one. And then the whole crew of them has to fight through the demons of round 2.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, it's a frustrating conversation to have because, like, obviously the guy is so talented and, like, all of them are these core 4 guys we talk about. It's just that, and like, look, as a guy that's not a fan of the team or anything, like, I'm trying to be as objective as I can when I look at this. Like, I'd love to see the guy have success because he's such a fun player to watch when he's hot and he's ripping pucks and shooting. Like, he scores, his shot is so rare. Like, 99% of the league doesn't have what he has. And so if he had these numbers, 54 points in 60 career playoff games, and he was a second line center making $8 million, people would go, what an unbelievable player. What a great second line player that guy is. What a luxury. But he's not, though. He's supposed to be, I'm told, the best goal scorer in the world, which I firmly at this point just do not believe he is when you combine the fact that the playoffs are a factor. I don't know how anybody could argue with me on that. Go ahead.
I'm just going to chime in because, I mean, you lived it in Washington for all those years before they won that cup. I mean, Ovechkin was supposed to be the best goal scorer back then as well. And how often did he lead his team to the promised land until they actually got it done, right? I think if what you're saying is bang on the money with Matthews, but if the Leafs had been winning and were winning rounds and Matthews put up the numbers he did, nobody would say boo. They might question it after, like we're talking now and saying, the Leafs were close, they could use Matthews maybe producing a little bit more. But because the team continues to collapse year after year after year, the narrative falls directly on him, as it should, because to your point, he's the number 1 guy. He's the highest paid player. He's the captain of the team now, right? He's the future of this team for the foreseeable future anyway. The expectations are on his back. But had they won in the past, and maybe got to a conference final or maybe a cup final and not have won, but had got there, nobody's questioning those numbers because everybody else has obviously contributed enough to get it done, right? Because the old adage used to be, you need your secondary guys to produce in the playoffs. They got to find ways. There's always that unsung hero that shows up, the John Druces of the world that nobody's heard of, that carries a team on his back somehow, some way. And right now in Toronto, there's nobody doing that.
Yeah, I had somebody pose that to me as well the other day, a buddy of mine who's a big Leaf fan, and he was like, well, yeah, you watch the same thing in Washington. I didn't watch the same thing in Washington. Team-wise, absolutely. But if we're going to be talking like apples to apples, talking Matthews versus Ovi's performance, these two guys, much like I feel Draisaitl has completely surpassed Matthews as the best goal scorer when you combine everything, I don't feel like Matthews deserves to be brought up in the same breath as Ovechkin when it comes to playoff performances, simply because of the lack of numbers here. And
that's fair. I just used it as the team example, right?
For sure. The team example makes plenty of sense. The issue, it was different, though, because the issue with Wash was that Backstrom and Ovechkin would show up every year and put up gangbuster numbers, and everyone else would be 0, 1, 0, 0, 2. It was, and the goaltending was atrocious as well. Like Ovi's first playoff year, 07-08, when they got eliminated by Philly in 7 games, 4 goals, 9 points. The next year, 14 games, 21 points, including 11 goals. 10 points in 7 games, 10 points in 9 games, 9 points in 14 games in 2011-12. Boy, that's a bummer. His worst year, he had 2 points in 7 games in 2012-13, that lockout shortened year. But then you look down the line, 9 points, 12 points, 27 in the cup winning year. I can't find these numbers with this guy, with Matthews. Where are they?
And honestly, it's my stupidity as a guest on your show to be questioning Ovi.
No, it's not. It's not.
But at the end of the day, you're right, right? You're right. Like with those numbers that Ovi was putting up, that again is a top end player for a team in Washington, being a top end player. Right, win, lose or draw, he
produced.
He produced, and that is all you are asking of Matthews to do for what he's being paid and what, again, captain of a team, leader of a team. Go lead, go do it, and it changes the narrative. If he actually put it up there and did it, people would shut up and just let it go.
Yes.
I like you, though, at the start of this conversation said he needs more. He needs to do more. I can't find an excuse for him. I can say the coaching of the opposition is doing a great job of defending him. That's just the coach talk in me. Meanwhile, if I was in the Leaf room, I'm probably sitting there at a dartboard throwing darts at a picture of him saying, produce something, man. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know. The power play is a killer for me for the Leafs, and I say that because again, I'll use Washington because I tend to bring them up on the positive for Washington on the power play. John Carlson at the top, or whether it was Mike Green at the top, was a power play quarterback who teams had to respect. If you gave the puck, if you took Ovi away and you gave it to Backstrom, well, he could score. Now it's Strome. He can score, but they've got great vision to make plays. Right? In Toronto, they don't have a quarterback up there. They're using Mitch because they want to use the 5-forward scheme, which so be it. But Mitch doesn't have a bomb from the point. They don't fear his shot. Right? Now, they've scored a few power play goals off him throwing it to the net. But last night, did he throw anything to the net?
Yeah. And the shorthanded goal obviously is a standout moment in the series. If Ottawa wins the series, they're going to look back at that shorty and go, here's where it tilted, right?
Yeah, and I don't disagree. And I mean, even on that play, Matthews makes a horrendous pass. I thought Mitch, and I've been on this show bashing Mitch for however many years we've been doing this. I think he's played great. I thought he played the 2-on-1 great. I mean, it was a nice play by Gaudette over to Cousins. Again, I'll be more mad at Nylander, who watched the turnover happen. You watch the behind the net view of him back checking and he's standing straight up and down, no urgency, versus Steven Lorentz gets a breakaway and all of a sudden 4 Senators are stripping him of the puck. Like there was hunger and urgency to get back to make that. If he scores, it was going to be a hard goal. It wasn't going to be a gimme. And they didn't allow it. And that to me has been the difference, right? A difference in a game. Ottawa's backs are against the wall. They're playing desperate, urgent hockey, still playing with their structure, right? And their big boys are doing it within that. The Leafs' big boys are not. That's the difference.
Very plain and simple, man. I mean, I can't really sum it up better. Nylander too. Like I don't want to. And again, yeah, I think Mitch is. I think Mitch is arguably, I would say, had the best playoff series of his career so far. He's been really good, and it's not like, you can talk about the clutch moments in the game 6 and 7 numbers, but so far he's done what I'm told and what my impression is of him that he's supposed to generate offense. He has 7 points. Like that, he's done what I'm told he's supposed to do. Much like Ovi did throughout his career with the failures, he showed up, ripped home goals,
Yep.
and did his thing. But Nylander, I mean, just Steve Dangle said, I don't know if you've watched his post-game video from Game 5 yet, Brooksy, you should. Steve Dangle had a line where he said Nylander didn't look like he had blood in his veins in Game 5, and I was like, that, like, it's harsh, but they bring it, ultimately, like, they bring it on themselves. Like, we call it, like, we're not on here going, like, we hate the Leafs. I don't hate the Leafs. I have no problem with the Leafs. They don't affect me one way or the other. I feel bad for Clarkey. I feel bad for Brooksy here. I feel bad for Brando and all my buddies that are Leaf fans. I'm not on here going, I can't wait to see them fail. They bring it on themselves. And ultimately, that's, you know, that's what they're facing. That's the great thing about sports, though, Brooksy. Washington ended up breaking through, and now Ovi's reputation has completely changed. Everyone talks about him as a Mount Rushmore guy now. He's broken Wayne's record. He's got the cup. People are like, what a winner that guy is. They wouldn't be saying that if he still didn't have a cup.
Right.
And the fact that he won the Conn Smythe. He was literally the best guy in the playoffs that year. And when we look at some of the other series that are going on, and a big reason I referenced Draisaitl v Matthews earlier is that Edmonton got them. They're gonna do it again to the Kings. Jim Hiller, talk about a coach having meltdowns. That guy's got a furnace face on him like I have never seen. 2-0 they were up, slamming Edmonton through the ice. The harmonicas are blaring, and LA's feeling great. It's 3-2 Oilers as we record this. I cannot believe the fact that, look, other guys have stepped up and appeared. Like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was a ghost those first couple games. He's been really good the last few. Bouchard has stepped up in a big way. But I think everybody went into that series going, no Ekholm. McDavid and Draisaitl might have to literally, as you said earlier, put the team on their back. And they have. It's incredible what these guys keep doing. LA, like, what's changed for you, like, watching a bit of that, Brooksy? Like, what is it? Just simply that those two guys are too friggin' good, or is LA doing something different that they weren't doing the first couple games?
No, I honestly think it's what you said at the beginning. I think the Draisaitl McDavid factor, those two players are all world, and when they say no, we're not letting this happen, they make it not happen. Like, they're just that good. They create so much. I mean, you talk about Bouchard. I mean, if Bouchard played in Toronto, we'd be having conversations about that player saying, why is he in Toronto? I mean, offensively, he's really good. He makes plays and can score goals from the point with that rocket ship of a shot. Defensively, he's the cause of more goals against with Darnell Nurse, and that's where that Ekholm thing comes in. Like, they're pretty bad. But when you see that, and then you see what McDavid and Draisaitl do, and then the other guys just come along with them, and it's like those top guys pull them. They're dragging them along in this fight, and they're saying, no, boys, come on. Enough is enough. Like, for Leon Draisaitl to snap on the bench in the one game where they're getting blown out, and in the intermission, I guess he snapped again in the room, and then they go out there and score what they do and get it to 5-5, only unfortunately give up that last goal in whatever 30-some seconds left. But those two guys literally carry that team. They are carrying that team. And again, when you compare the Leafs to them, that is not what we're seeing under the best, right? Like, and that's a prime example.
Well, it is. And like the fact too that, you know, like, I look at McDavid, and I know like they're Oilers, so everybody would go like a, you know, Gretzky Messier type thing. I actually think that McDavid, Draisaitl are a lot more like Lemieux, Yager, where, you know, and for guys like that to snap and freak out, you actually have to pay attention and take it to heart, because everybody in that room knows not only are these two guys our best players, they're our best performers like big distinction there. They combine the two, him and McJesus. Like people call him that for a reason. But Draisaitl is actually the guy in the playoffs that is the true driver. And you actually have to pay attention and go like, geez, Leon's really mad. We better up our ante here. I don't know that you necessarily get the same reaction or respect in the Leafs room when like if Matthews snaps, because I think there'd be the odd guy, maybe you would hope not, in the room that would go, well, what is that guy doing? Like he's supposed to be scoring and like he's got 2 goals in 15 playoff games. I don't know. We're not in the room. I don't know. Brooksy, as we look around at some of the other series, are there any series that stick out and surprise you a little bit? I've got one in particular in mind that I'm floored that it's where it's at. Is there anything that sticks out and jumps off the page at you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I give Dallas a lot of credit to be doing what they're doing against Colorado, considering who they're missing.
Yep.
But again, I throw that back on Pete DeBoer, as the coach of the Dallas Stars, getting guys to continue to buy in and believe and work, and the effort they get out of everybody else, I think has been exceptional. I still think that's the best series.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But outside of that, I mean, Carolina winning last night, Edmonton, like you say, they're doing with LA. Washington's, going to put Montreal to sleep tonight, I believe.
Hope so. Yeah.
The Florida Tampa one too is maybe a little surprising, just for the fact that how well Tampa was playing going into the playoffs. Florida then going into Tampa, winning both of those. And then losing the first game at home again, kind of like I'm going to keep bringing the Leafs up, like their game last night with Ottawa, where it was a sleepy affair for Florida. But then last night, the way they responded, and just physically keep taking Tampa apart is impressive. And the Vegas Minnesota series has been pretty crazy. I would have
been good.
I would have put money on Vegas rolling Minnesota, and
I picked them in 5, Brooksy.
Yeah,
I picked them in 5
away too, right? So that's my take. But you're the hockey guy. You tell me.
Well, I appreciate that coming from you. Like the Winnipeg St. Louis series has been trench warfare, and I'm just a little floored that Hellebuck is doing this again. Like his playoff number. Look, he's a freak of nature in terms of the regular season. But he's another one of these guys that's a star player where the playoffs come around and his playoff numbers are outright sickening. He has a sub 800 save percentage in this series, Brooksy.
Yeah, he wears blue and white, Ryan. That's his problem.
It's one of the most confounding things probably in sports right now, like the difference in performance. And you look at it and you're like, what happened? But give credit to St. Louis, man. Like that's a ballsy team. That head coach went in there and turned things around. They went on an all-time heater getting into the playoffs, and man, oh man, they're giving Winnipeg a lot to handle. Brooksy, before I let you go, again, it's unfortunate that we have to record this show prior to Game 7 of the Barons and Napanee Raiders. But there's 2 guys on that Barons bench, the coaching staff, that you had a really big impact on. And that's, of course, Brennan Clayton and Brady Anderson. You coached these guys, multiple Cherry Cups, a Sutherland Cup championship. Like when you see the success that they're now having now as coaches, particularly Brady as a head coach, when you had them as players, like, and you look back now, are you surprised that they're having this type of success as coaches? Like, did you always look at those guys and go, those two have, a unique hockey mind?
Not surprised and very proud of what they've accomplished. I mean, they've earned everything they've gotten. Brady was a student of the game as a player. Just thinking back to him, bringing him into meetings and stuff, he had a very good eye for what he was looking at, understood the details, understood, how to be successful, right? It wasn't all flash for him. He was about the details and executing the details, and I could see him preaching the details. And the same with Clates. Like, I mean, Brendan Clayton was a warrior as a defenseman. And he's going to teach those D in Hanover and be preaching a lot of the same concepts, keeping it simple and defending. But, Clates can speak to it, right? Like that, he lived the game. He wore the game. He wears his heart in the sleeve as a player and as a coach. But even in the conversations with him now, like, again, same idea, student of the game, understands what it takes to win and be successful, and, is sharing that knowledge with those players. And I wish them all the best. I hope they can, finish the job off.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're hoping that when this airs, people are going, they did do it. So, and if they do, remember, we're going to have full coverage of the Schmalz Cup Final, assuming that the Barons can get it done on CKNX. Well, Brooksy, it's great to have you on here. I genuinely hope next time we talk to you, it's in the midst of a furious second round battle for the Leafs. Really appreciate this, brother. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to our next one.
Absolutely. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, lots to talk about, including, of course, the Blue Jays. I mean, talk about underperforming. No one's doing it like the Blue Jays right now, and I got some thoughts on that coming up next here on Instigating. Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. Ryan's still with you here. Clarkey's going to be off for a little while. I'll address that now quickly. Clarkey's going to be off for a little while for personal reasons. When he's ready to talk about it, he'll come on and talk about it. But we won't see Clarkey for a little bit, so I'm going to hold the fort down here. And we got to talk some baseball. And I mentioned at the end of the last segment, and when we do that on this show, there's one person in particular we like to turn to, and that's your friendly neighborhood Toronto Maple Leafs beat reporter for the Toronto Sun. Toronto Sun. Get the Sun.
Careful now.
Right?
Careful
now. It's Rob Longley.
You are instigating.
Mr. Longley.
You are totally instigating right now.
That was an unintentional instigating.
Yes,
that was an unintentional instigating. And speaking of unintentionally instigating, boy, the Jays did that to us the other night with a gigantic comeback win that I don't think many people in the building or that have been watching the team this year saw coming against the Red Sox. Before we dive into the 6-0 comeback with Alejandro Kirk's extra innings dramatics and Anthony Santander finally flashing his power, overall so far this season, Longley, like, they got off to a pretty positive start. And even when they hit 500, people were going, boy, it's incredible they're doing this with the top three hitters basically doing nothing. The only problem is that seems to be continuing. What is your impression of the way this team is playing so far, and where are all the shortcomings here?
Well, man, how long do we have to discuss it? They're an exhausting team to be around, whether you're covering them, whether you're playing for them, or whether you're a fan following them. And let's start with it. This is the simplest way to answer the shortcomings of this team. How can a team with a $250 million US payroll not have a leadoff hitter, not have a cleanup hitter, and not have a fifth starter? I mean, that answers a lot of your troubles right there. This team they have the money to spend. They have some top end power and production, but I question the way that they've spent that money, because how can you go into a season like that without pitching depth on the starting side and without a guy who's going to be a clear leadoff hitter? And then when you have, as you suggested, Ryan, that the top of the order has been underperforming, this is what you get. When you have Andres Jimenez as your best hitter for the first week and a half of the season, this is what you get. When you finally have Anthony Santander hitting a home run, and a big one at that in the comeback that you referenced, maybe that gives you a bit of a glimmer of hope, because that's what you paid all that money for the guy to do. But it's been too few and too far between for this team, and that's why they're in the predicament that they're in. I mean, I guess if you're a glass half full guy, you're like, well, the rest of the American League doesn't look all that good, and if they ever do catch fire, maybe they can be a playoff contender.
Yeah, that is one glimmer of hope, I guess, if they do catch fire. And I mean, again, the Blue Jays are the most if-ridden team in Major League Baseball. And yeah, you referenced the American League. Like, yeah, the Yankees are as good as most people thought they'd be. The Orioles, who I picked to win the division, are languishing. Their pitching is absolutely redonkulous bad. They're dead last in basically every major pitching category. Letting Corbin Burns go is looking really tough on them. But when you look at the Jays, like, they're pitching overall, despite the lack of starting depth and maybe the odd missing piece in the bullpen, has actually like been pretty good. It's been the backbone and spine of the team so far, bar, some bad starts from Bowden Francis and the 53 pitch inning at Yankee Stadium from Kevin Gausman. The bullpen really has been the shining example. And I mean, thank you to the Atlanta Braves and Baltimore Orioles medical staff for seeing whatever the hell it was they saw with Jeff Hoffman's shoulder. He arguably has been their most efficient and effective player.
Yeah, I don't even know if you want to argue that. I think he's been clear and above their best player. And, as you and I are reluctant to give credit to this front office, but they sure made the right move walking away from Jordan Romano. No question about that.
Yep.
And they legit saw something in Hoffman. And this is exactly what they saw. A guy that was coming into his own as a late inning guy, a guy who was clearly on the verge of establishing himself as a closer, a guy with nasty stuff, a guy with just the right amount of edge and attitude to utilize that nasty stuff. And he's been lights out. You could argue that he's been as good as any reliever in baseball so far this year. And not only that, Ryan, I mean, the game against Boston, which he got the win for, that's the third time that he's pitched 2 innings, and it hasn't really phased him. Like, they give him an extra day off afterwards, but he's a guy that if you really need him to do it, he can shut down the opposition in the 8th and the 9th, or the 9th and the 10th if it goes to extra innings, as it did in that Red Sox game. What a great acquisition he's been, and what a great closer. And you talk about the pitching staff as a whole. And I agree with you. The starting rotation has been solid, but man, oh man, I really worry about the wear and tear. That 53 pitch inning that you referenced against the Yankees for Kevin Gausman, that's going to come back and haunt him. I fear. Pitchers aren't built to do that in the 3rd inning, to throw 53 pitches in an inning like that. And there was already signs of wear and tear. They pushed his next start back a day, so. You've got these arms that are elite in Bassett and Gausman, especially, but they're aging arms. They're into their mid-30s now, and you cannot abuse that. And when you've got a 4-man rotation, you've reduced yourself to bullpen days in late April. To me, that's a bit of a warning sign.
Yeah, that's a worry for sure. And I mean, you look at Hoffman's stuff that you referenced. I mean, he's got that really nasty slider that breaks horizontally away from righties. He can break it downward inside against lefties. He's got that circle change that breaks inward on righties and the opposite on lefties. And he's got that fastball. And I mean, his pitch mix has been really, really excellent.
Location too. His location is outstanding.
It's insane. Like, he is as dialed as anybody. And I guess, yeah, that's kind of the problem. I mean, it's like saying your 4th defenseman is your best player on your hockey team. Like, and maybe that's a poor example, but it's a real concern, because you look at the money, like you said, that's been doled out here, and a team that is, over the competitive balance tax, and you're like, well, what exactly are we getting for that? And it really starts at the top here. Like, yeah, we can talk about inconsistent defensive play at times. We can talk about the wear and tear of the bullpen. But what it really all boils down to, I think, for the majority of people, is the top of this order. And it's Bichette, it's Vlad, the $500 million man, and it's Santander, who finally smoked a nasty home run to tie up the Red Sox at 6, and then Kirk steps up, and hopefully that gets him hot at the plate, gets some confidence going for these guys. But the top of this order, what's going on? You talk about exhausting, Longley. God bless you and everybody that's down there seeing this every day. What on earth is wrong with this top 3?
Well, the best thing that happened in that breakout game, where all those guys had big hits, is that it was played on April 30th. So that means John Schneider can't say it's April anymore, because that's been his excuse for their shortcomings at the plate for weeks now, and it's tiresome, man. Like a fifth of the season has gone by now. 20%. I get it. It's a long season. It's a marathon. There's 162 of them. There's a lot of games still left to play. But man, oh man, you cannot have an offense that's that benign, and especially at the top. So the question that I have is, I fully believe that they're going to heat up at some point. They're too good. Bichette, Santander, and Guerrero, they're elite hitters. But when they heat up, what does that look like? Is that enough to carry this team? I mean, the second game of that doubleheader at Yankee Stadium, they had four guys out there, Ryan, with a batting average of less than 200. Four guys, a major league roster with four guys with a batting average of less than 200 a month into the season in Yankee Stadium, trying to win a baseball game. I mean, we could talk about it in so many different ways about roster construction with this team. I mean, it's been a signature of the Ross Atkins era that you load up the team with 6 or 7 utility guys who can't hit. They could play pretty good defense, but you still got to score runs. Before they scored seven in that Red Sox game, I mean, I think you had to go back 12 games before they scored even six. There was 11 in a row where they were 4 runs or less. They were averaging 3.5 runs a game. This doesn't work, man. I mean, defense is great, but we've talked about this in the past. Yes, the defense is elite, but it just completely wears down a pitching staff when every game is 2-1, and you cannot afford to make a mistake. If you go into a 3-0 hole, it's game over. That's why you and I were talking off air the other night about when the Red Sox went up 6-0, it's game over. Jays can't come back. They finally did once, but with that offense, any kind of a hole is too much to overcome. And to me, that's been the biggest problem with this offense.
You're making me sad right now, man. I'm not ready for these conversations. I knew they were coming probably, but you're laying these numbers out and it's making me sad. Yeah, 11 straight with 4 or less runs. It's bonkers. And I'm confused about some of the manager, like guys hitting less than 200. Like a guy will have a good game and they pull him and they platoon a guy. Like Will Wagner went 2 for 3 the one day against Houston, one of the or against the Yankees, and he was playing at third, I believe, and then they pulled him and they put somebody else in. It's like, for God's sakes, can we leave somebody that's hitting a ball in the lineup for a day? One guy that, before we let you go, Rob, one guy that I'm really concerned about in particular is Bo, because when he gets cold, it is ice cold. I'm looking at him. He needs a contract. There's no more arbitration after this year. Sell me on why you think that he should remain a Blue Jay after this, if you do believe that, and what that contract looks like, because even in the home opener, like defensively, he's had his shortcomings too, and he sailed one over top of first base, an error right away in the home opener. Do you believe this guy should be and will be a Blue Jay beyond this year?
I'm willing to be convinced, but I'm not convinced as we sit here today, because
what would it take for you to be convinced?
It would take what we talked about prior to the season, and that's be the Bo Bichette of 2023 and not the Bo Bichette of 2024, and nothing like the Bo Bichette of 2024. And I think throughout most of his big league career, he's been able to work his way out of these slumps and these inconsistencies and these poor approaches at the plate. He didn't last year. Part of that was injury related. And we're starting to see some of those warning signs creep in a little bit this year. Bo's an interesting dude personally. He strikes me as a bit of a brooding kind of guy. He's very quiet, soft-spoken, very intense, though. But when things don't go well, he wears it hard, whether it's for himself personally in his own performance or for the team. So I'm thinking of all those guys in the clubhouse with that, losing 8 of 9 or 7 of 8 or whatever it was. He probably wore that harder than anybody else. And that's not a good sign. You got to be able to rise above that. He started the season okay. He was hitting pretty good, and we saw some of those signs of 2023 Bo But the last couple of weeks, we're starting to see some of the frailties move back in again. So, back to the original question, what would it take to have him become a Blue Jay in the future? I mean, he's got to bounce back. He's got to lead the team, be one of the leaders offensively. And then I think probably the contract demand has to be somewhat reasonable. I have no idea at this point what it looks like. Is it more than 300 million? Is it more than 25 million a year? I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's so much of that is performance driven on what he accomplishes this year. And now that the Jays have spent all that money on Vlad, are they really going to want to spend a huge contract long term to keep Bo in the mix? My sense before the season was that he was going to play it out and test free agency anyway, and I suspect that's going to be the case. But how he performs is going to determine how much he's going to make and from where.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, I mean, if he has a great season and gets back to 2023, Bo, they better pony up and keep him around because they need somebody other than Vlad to drag people down to that ballpark in the future. We'll see, man. Rob, really appreciate this. Remember, you can follow Rob on Twitter and read all of his stuff online, and of course in the Toronto Sun. Rob Longley, your friendly neighborhood Toronto Blue Jays beat reporter. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Hey, my pleasure. We'll do it again.
Absolutely, we will. We will check in on the Jays. We have to. We got to keep tabs on these guys, and I hope next time Rob's on, it's a little more positive. Take a quick break. When we come back, producer Adam will be wrapping up the show to update you on what went on with the Hanover Barons. Big Game 7. I'm heading there now. I'm off to Napanee. Producer Adam will update you. Hopefully the Barons are in the final of the PJHL, and of course, he'll keep you updated as well on what goes on with the Maple Leafs. Game 6. Come on, Leafs. Don't do this again. Producer Adam will update you next.
Thanks, Ryan. Wrapping things up here on This Week of Instigating, and I'm Adam Olivero, out from behind the producer's chair, and in here Friday morning to wrap up some of the things that we were talking about on the show, update you on the latest on some series that we were following closely. All right, so first of all, I'm in control now, so we'll start with the Colorado Avalanche, forcing a Game 7 in dramatic fashion. They almost lost to Dallas, but then came ahead and got a couple of empty net goals to win that game 7-4. On the other side of the ice sheet, we had the Toronto Maple Leafs clinching their series against Ottawa 4-2. So Jason Brooks will be really happy, and thanks Jason and Rob Longley for being on the show with Ryan this week. And then over in the PJHL, the Hanover Barons win their game with 5-2 final over the Napanee Raiders, punch their ticket to face Essex, and they'll have Game 1 at the P&H Center at 3:30 p.m. in Hanover on Saturday, May the 3rd. So we will be there as Whitemans. CKNX will be there as well too if you can't make it to the game, but please come out and support your Hanover Barons. And then finally, to wrap things up as well too, Rob Longley will be, I'm not sure if he's going to be happy or disappointed, but the Blue Jays are rolling. They beat the Boston Red Sox last night as well, too. So all around, a good evening for sports for all us sports fans out there. The Leafs win, the Avalanche win, the Barons win, and the Blue Jays win. And you're winning when you watch this show. As always, you can watch this show on Whiteman TV Channel 6 every Friday starting at 8 p.m. And we're also airing on Sundays as well too at 9 p.m. Debuting on our YouTube channel at 9 p.m. as well. Follow us on social media and catch the podcast as well too. We're on Instagram at Instigating Pod and on X at Instigating Pod as well. Well, that wraps up things for this week on Instigating. Again, thank you to Jason Brooks and Rob Longley for being on the show along with Ryan. And we hope you are doing better, Clarkey, and we'll see you soon. Now, next week, we won't have a new show on the podcast or YouTube. If you're watching next week on Whiteman's, we will have HMP and the Jada Mechanical Showcase, the Huron Health Food Bank Showcase will be rebroadcast on Whiteman's as well too, so you can catch that on Whiteman TV. We'll see you on Instigating in a couple of weeks. Take care and enjoy this amazing hockey we're watching.